All right. So let's get started. Okay, so today we are talking about CBD for health and wellness, and I am a pharmacist by trade, so I will be giving my pharmacist perspective, and in particular, I'm actually an integrative health pharmacist. So not only will I be talking as, a quintessential pharmacist, I'll also be providing, what it means to be an integrative health practitioner and a pharmacist. And this webinar is brought to you by Element Apothic. So I am one of the co-founders as well as the chief scientific officer in charge of all things education, as well as our innovative product innovation, our product formulations. All right, so a little bit about me and my background. So I'm an integrative health pharmacist, as I mentioned. I'm very passionate about preventative wellness and really overall how I can help the patient achieve their treatment goals. And so this started at a really young age. Actually, I was always interested in herbs, and I grew up around Ayurveda, but I also grew up around, my dad who was a supplement formulator and my mom who worked in the pharma industry and was a nurse by trade. So I was always around healthcare, always knew I wanted to do something in it, and always saw the value of so many different modalities. And so as I went throughout my career, I realized that there were maybe one or two integrative health pharmacists when I started in the field. And so I was looking for the right mentor, found one, got trained in not only an independent natural pharmacy, but also in an interdisciplinary clinic, and really forged the path with one of the forefathers or foremothers in the field of integrative health, and really help shape what that looks like now for the new generation of people interested in integrative health. So that really means a lot to me. And as I've gone through and had the opportunity to speak to a lot of different colleges, a lot of different organizations and institutions, I created this infographic on the left side of the screen. And so this is the way I define integrative health pharmacy. To me, it really is the interplay of all these different modalities. And so as you can see, there's everything on the screen here, from movement and rest to the importance of healthy relationships and community, all the way to vitamins, minerals, supplements, nutraceuticals, as well as nutrition, mindful attention or meditation, as well as pharmacogenomics. And of course, you can see herbs here as well. And CBD falls into that herbs cannabis category. So, so many of these different things play such an important role in the overall optimization of health and wellness for every single person. And I think it's really important to put them all on this one spectrum, because at the end of the day, it depends on what each person wants to achieve through, their various combinations of these things on the wheel, because it's really not one size fits all. It's all about personalized medicine and personalizing it to each person's experience and goals. So that's really the way I view integrative health pharmacy, and the way that I practice is that it really is, that some patients are very interested in staying on their prescription medications, but they want to see what else they can add into their regimen so that they can live the best life possible. And so what we'll be focusing on today is not only talking about CBD for health and wellness, but we'll also be talking about some other modalities that could be really pivotal in a patient's journey. And the way that I wanted to do it today was actually through a series of case studies. So in each of these case studies, we'll be delving into a different patient and then talking about different modalities and things that could help each of these patients. And I think this provides a good outline and like an intro discussion to the ways that we can use integrative health and holistic healing from the get-go, and think about it in a preventative way, but also in a curative way. All right, moving on to the next slide. So first and foremost, I wanted to give an introduction to CBD. And, there are so many things to know about CBD. And I know that quite a few people that are attending today, they have a background in CBD, and then other people are completely new to it. So I wanted to provide a little bit of a background and then continue to expand upon it as it comes up throughout our discussion and through the different case studies that we'll delve into. So first and foremost here, we have on the left side of the screen, we have this beautiful diagram that's from a textbook that I love, and it's talking about the endocannabinoid system. And really, you can see in the parentheses here, it says CB1 and CB2. So you might be wondering, So what do those mean? So those are actually the two cannabinoid receptors that we know the most about. So it's cannabinoid type receptor 1 and cannabinoid type receptor 2. And as you can see, the endocannabinoid system in these particular receptors are found throughout the body in a lot of different organ systems, as well as neurotransmitter systems. And the overarching goal of the endocannabinoid system is to promote a sense of balance, or homeostasis is the fancy scientific term, but it's really a balance in all of these systems. And that's why the endocannabinoid system can play such an incredible role in the balance and the promotion of all these processes in the best way possible, and in the optimization of them. And so what's important to note too is that not only do we have these cannabinoid type receptors, so CB1 and CB2 that you see on the screen, there's also what are called non-cannabinoid receptors. And so these are other receptors in the body that are actually, they were discovered a very long time ago. They're used in a lot of different systems, and they are actually also in a lot of different not only organs, but they're also in a lot of different just physiological processes in the body. So an example of this is the TRPV1 receptor. The TRPV1 receptor is found at high concentrations in the skin, and that's actually why CBD works really well in the skin and has like a high absorption possibility, is because of the TRPV1 receptors found in the skin. And it's really great because it helps explain why not only are the CB1 and CB2 receptors so important in the overall functionality of the body, but it also explains how they have a relationship with other receptors in the body too. And so if you want me to answer more questions about that, please let me know, and it will play a role a bit later in some of our discussion. And then in the middle here, I have like what looks like a pie chart in the middle of the screen. And so this pie chart actually speaks to, it's a reminder to me to talk about the metabolism of CBD and the metabolism of other cannabinoids. So something else to note, even before I delve into this, is that CBD is one of the active components in the cannabis plant, but just as you would think about like any other plant that you can think of, whether it's like the lavender plant or the lemon balm plant, any of the plants, there are a lot of different active components that make up how, the plant can work therapeutically, but also just make up the active just spectrum of what is possible for each plant. And so, CBD is one of the active components, but there's also actually, as you can see on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, that there's a lot of other, acronyms that are different cannabinoids in the body. So CBD stands for cannabidiol. And as you can see on the bottom, right hand of the screen, we have CBN or cannabinol, CBG or cannabigerol, THC or tetrahydrocannabinol. And so all of these are different active components, and I think of them as siblings in the cannabis plant. So all of the different active components are family members, and CBD, CBG, CBN, THC, they're all siblings. And therefore these siblings are related. However, they all, have different paths in life, and they all choose to do different things. Like we think about your siblings or your friend's siblings, right? Like one of them might be an artist, but one of them, might be a physician. And then there's a bunch of other different professions that people can pursue as well. So, every single cannabinoid has their own specific function, and they have their own specific, reasoning for doing what they do. And also they're broken down in the body similarly, but not the same. And so this goes back to the pie chart in the middle. So the pie chart speaks to an entire family of enzymes in the body, and enzymes' goals are breaking down things in the body so that you can either, use them for good or excrete them. So, this entire family of enzymes, they're called the CYP enzymes or CYP enzymes. And then the few letters and numbers after that are the different kinds of enzymes. So again, thinking of them as like a family of enzymes, and they're all different siblings that do different things and all break down different things in the body. We can see that, and what we know from the pharmaceutical agents, so the actual prescription medications and supplements, and actually a lot of herbs as well, is they're broken down by the same exact system. And this is super important to know when we're thinking about how do we optimize benefit and risk and optimize efficacy for a patient if they want to integrate cannabis into their daily life, if they want to integrate a product that has CBD or CBG, how is it broken down in the body, and what other medications are they currently taking, or what other supplements are they taking, and how are those broken down in the body? And then we can think about, okay, is this the right choice for each patient? And that really helps inform a lot of our decision making as clinicians. And the thing too is that with this CYP system, the CYP system of enzymes, is they actually break down 60 to 70% of all drugs that are on the market right now. So that's not only drugs, but also think about how many supplements and herbs are also broken down by the same system. So it's possible that there could be quite a few drug interactions or, possible interactions really between some of the things that you're already taking and cannabinoids. And this is really important and something that I think about all the time when people ask me, or they write in on our Ask Dr. Swathi portal, and they ask, can I take XYZ medication with cannabinoids? I always ask, if they don't provide me their medication list, like, what else are you taking? I just need to have a full picture so that I know that my answer will be really optimizing benefit for you while decreasing as much risk as possible. And it's also a good thing to note is, like, because of these possible drug interactions, it is possible that CBD is not for everyone. I think that CBD can be a great option for a lot of people, but it's also possible that with your certain, specific drug profile or your supplement profile, that there could be something else that would be even better. Maybe it's another cannabinoid, maybe it's another herb entirely. So yes, so that's very important to understand, is how it's broken down, but also understanding that as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, that there are a lot of different cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. We actually know and have research about 200 of them. So of course, they're not 200 on the screen because that would be a lot on one screen, but it's just to illustrate that there are a lot of different kinds. And so another thing I wanted to talk about on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen that you might not know, but you might have seen on products, is on CBD products, it will say like different terminology, right? It will say like full spectrum, broad spectrum, and isolate. And so you might be wondering what the difference is and like what that means for, THC content or not having THC. And it's really important to think about whether or not a product has THC, because that is the exact compound that in drug tests, that's what they test for among, a lot of other active ingredients and other illicit substances, but they also test for THC. So if you're taking a product, for example, that is an isolate product or a broad spectrum product, as you can see on the screen, there's no THC in either of those, which means if you were someone, at your job, if you got, random drug tested, or if you're in a program, like when I was in pharmacy school, we got random drug tested. And so it was always something to think about, was like, if I'm going to take a CBD product, I definitely don't want to take something with any THC. That being said, full spectrum products, they have up to only 0.3% THC. So you might be thinking, wow, that's a very little amount of THC. However, it's still possible that it could come up on a drug test. So it's just important to keep in mind that just depending again on your scenario and your particular lifestyle and what role you have in your life in terms of like a job or anything, that it might not behoove you to take a product with THC, but again, it really depends on each person and what you're looking for. So, on that note, what I have in the top right-hand corner is what's called the entourage effect. The entourage effect is this phenomenon that's really fascinating that talks about, and I think that this image illustrates it really nicely, is that all these different cannabinoids, as well as other active components. So I mentioned that there are a lot of active components in the cannabis plant. It's not just cannabinoids, it's also things called terpenes, flavonoids, bioflavonoids, all these other active components that are found in a lot of other plants as well. Cannabinoids are unique to cannabis, as per the name, but terpenes and flavonoids are actually found in a lot of other botanicals. And I'm happy to delve more into that if people are interested as well. So yes, so these are a lot of the different things that are in the cannabis plant. And what this entourage effect, or it's also called the ensemble effect, it really speaks to this idea that a lot of these compounds synergize together. So what that means is that a lot of these different compounds work in synergy. So they're able to work with one another as opposed to against one another. And so the idea of taking like a broad spectrum product, for example, is really great because all these different components can really work together, and they can really help amplify the effects of the other. And so the idea is, with utilizing the entourage effect, you can use a bit less of the active ingredient while still having a lot of the benefit. So again, happy to delve into any of these topics, and especially like whether it's in the Q&A later or it's in upcoming webinars, would love to hear your feedback on what makes sense and what I can delve into even more. But I wanted to provide this little, intro to CBD and what you need to know, especially moving forward in some of the case studies that we'll be talking about. Another topic that I absolutely love, and I cannot do an intro to CBD webinar without talking about cannabimemetics. So cannabimemetics are different activities, substances, different things that we can do in our daily life that actually influence the functionality of the endocannabinoid system. So as it says on the screen, compounds with similar pharmacological effects to those phyto and endocannabinoids. I will break down those two terms in a second. But really what's an important takeaway here is that there are a lot of different things that we do in our daily life that we don't even consider, that are just a part of our, daily life. Maybe we meditate every morning. Maybe we ensure that we get movement every day, whether that's walking or HIIT exercises or Pilates. Maybe it's the, incorporation of spices in our diet, like turmeric or cloves or black pepper. And all of these things that I mentioned actually are what are considered cannabimemetics. So they work on the endocannabinoid system, and they bind to one of these receptors on the screen. And so CB1 and CB2 I mentioned are unique to the endocannabinoid system, but TRPV1, TRPV2, GCPR, a lot of these other receptors, as you can see, found throughout the body, actually can be influenced by a lot of the things we do in our daily life, and therefore improve the way that the endocannabinoid system works. And I absolutely love this, especially from an integrative health perspective. It's like not only incorporating cannabis or cannabinoids in our daily life, but it's also what else can we do that work in synergy. Again, this idea of the entourage effect, but on a more grand scale. What can we do in our daily life that can actually optimize our endocannabinoid system on another level? And I love the idea of not only adding cannabinoids into your daily routine, but what else can we do? And it really speaks to the way that I think about health and the way that I feel like resonates with a lot of patients. As per cannabimemetics, I also wanted to talk about the difference between these two, big words on the side of the screen here, endocannabinoids and phytocannabinoids. So phytocannabinoids, phyto, that prefix means from a plant, and endo means endogenous, so found in the body, often, or inside is really what it means. So phytocannabinoids are the cannabinoids found in the cannabis plant. So that's on the screen here on the bottom right-hand corner, that's CBD, CBN, CBG, all naturally occurring cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. However, endocannabinoids, as per the endocannabinoid system title, are cannabinoids that we create and synthesize on demand in our body. So this is a really great way to open up the discussion to a lot of healthcare professionals, a lot of people who are interested in learning more, because not only is it these cannabinoids that we can incorporate into our daily routine from, external sources, from these natural plants, it's also the fact that we can create endocannabinoids in our body. And the two endocannabinoids that we know the most about are called 2-AG. That's a short for a very, very long arachidonyl, very, very long word. But 2-AG is the name of one of them. And AEA, you might see it shortened, or anandamide is the name of the other one. And these will also come up in discussion later as well. All right, so we are going to hop straight to case study 1. So here we have patient PM. She's a female, age 69 is what I meant. She's retired. She's a new grandmother. She has this inability to fall and stay asleep. She was newly told by her physician that she should try a plant-based diet. And then always important, of course, as a pharmacist, I'm always thinking, okay, this is their life. This is their background, their age, their lifestyle, but I'm also thinking, okay, like what else is going on in their life apart from just their medication? So then I also want to know, okay, what are they taking? They're taking low dose metformin. So metformin is like the intro diabetes medication that a lot of, or type 2 diabetes rather, medication. She's on a water pill, as she calls it. She's taking metoprolol, which is for heart health. And she's also taking these other supplements. So, if she comes to me and says, I have this inability to fall and stay asleep, as an integrative health pharmacist, these are some of the things that I think of that could be helpful for her. So first of all, we want to talk about the importance of sleep. So we have a circadian rhythm, or it's also called a body clock. And the importance of sleep, as per what research signifies, is that we need it for rebalance, refuel, and also to help with elimination of all the toxic substances in our body, but also just the way that the GI tract works, and to eliminate what we don't need in the body anymore after all the good stuff, all the nutrients have been taken out in our gastrointestinal tract. So ideally, the research points to 7 to 9 hours per night. I've seen some interesting studies more recently that are actually saying the range is more like 5 to 9 hours, very dependent on your metabolism, on your age, on a lot of different components, but more research needed to define that. But at least at this point, we can say 7 to 9 hours for the average adult. And then there's this big difference, I think, and that I've come to learn over the years as well, between sleep quality and sleep quantity. And this is something that she talked about, was this inability to fall and stay asleep. And with that is when you're able to stay asleep, then you're able to really get all the benefits of this rebalance, refuel, and elimination that you need. And so if you don't get enough sleep, these are some of the issues that can come with that, whether it's brain fog, attention deficit, delayed reactions, mood imbalance. And then if you have chronic sleep deprivation, it can actually manifest in a lot of different disease states that I have written on the screen. And all of these have been very extensively researched. So it's just something to think about, that overarchingly, though, if you think about it, if you're not letting your body rejuvenate itself and feel, at its best, then over time, you're not allowing your body to function, in the way it's supposed to. And therefore it can end up having a lot of these issues that are listed on the right side of the screen. And then, so one of the things, not only talking about the background of sleep, to me, looking at all the different modalities, I think of different, remedies that I had growing up, but also other remedies that I continue to do now that really help with thinking about how to optimize sleep. So this is something, again, I would talk to a patient about, some of the Ayurvedic remedies. So doing a warm leg or foot bath soak, specifically with salts, whether it's magnesium salt, potassium salts, all of those are really, a lot of the salts are phenomenal for that and really help with recovery, but also help with relaxation. The idea with Ayurveda as well is to eat all your meals while the sun is up, because the idea is that your metabolism is mirrored by where the sun is throughout the day. And so when the sun is down, the idea is that your metabolism is at its lowest. So to have an early supper and to eat before sundown, I know for most of us, that's kind of impossible. The sun is down right now and I can't say I've had dinner. So it's not ideal every single day, but it is something that we can strive for, especially if we're making these active steps to improve our overall sleep quantity and sleep quality from a macro scale level. And then also reducing alcohol, particularly alcohol near bedtime, reducing caffeine, again, particularly near bedtime, and then adding weight. That there's a whole phenomenon in Ayurveda about adding a weighted blanket. Of course, it's not called a weighted blanket in Ayurveda, but the idea of adding weight down to help you fall into sleep. And then also what you can see on the screen with what this woman is doing is a self massage. It's called Abhyanga, and you can often use oils and different aspects and things. So it's not just self-massage on the body, but also self-massage on your scalp is also really great and supposed to be very soothing and help improve sleep quality. And then the other stuff too that's really important with sleep is to talk about sleep hygiene. I love talking about sleep hygiene. So it's, keeping a consistent sleep schedule with the same time that you get into bed and the same time you get out of bed, even on the weekends, to prioritize sleep. So you might have a really awesome birthday party to go to and it's your friend's birthday and it's obviously only once a year. So you want to go to it. So that's awesome. Go to it, but also just ensure that you're not veering off of your sleep schedule every single night, but here and there, of course, if we want to live life and enjoy. So it's just something to keep in mind that, having the fixed get into bed and wake up times really do help with that consistency, and also really helps with optimizing sleep quality. And also to limit daily naps. Of course, this makes sense. If you're getting all your sleep during the day, then you probably are not going to be that tired at night to go to sleep and to sleep well. And then also to maintain a nightly routine. So this could be a lot of different things for different people. This could be the self-massage, like the Abhyanga that I was just talking about. This could be trying meditation before bed, stretching, essential oils, could be a lot of different things for different people. But I think having some sort of set thing that you look forward to, that your body gets accustomed to knowing, all right, this is what we're going to do in this order that will help you go to sleep, will be helpful. And then of course, a lot of that is not having electronics or blue light too close to bedtime as well. So then, of course, being an integrative health pharmacist, not only am I thinking about what are all of these different other modalities, but what herbs and supplements do I recommend for sleep? So these are some of the ones I have listed on the screen that I really love. I love the combination of CBD and CBN for sleep. I also really love chamomile and reishi and glycine and L-theanine at the right dose. So there are a lot of potential options here, and I'm happy to delve into any of them if you'd like to hear more. But I just wanted to make sure and give a background on a lot of the different aspects I would consider for sleep. All right, and then we have oops, that was quick, sorry. We have case study 2. So case study 2 is a male, a patient MH. He is 28 years old. He recently started his PhD. He's trying to find a balance between daily life and school, and he's feeling anxious for the first time. He's really finding an inability to focus on everything going on in school. He takes Ritalin every day, and he also takes probiotics and vitamin D. So, how would I help this patient? So something he asked for was he wants something that he can take on the daily, that he can integrate into his daily routine. And then not only these things that are on the screen that I think are incredible for mood balance, and these are some of my go-tos, I also think that there's a lot to be said about mood balance, and especially when he was saying he was feeling anxious for the first time. I think a lot of that comes back to mindfulness, and not only with sleep, but creating moments of peace and quiet for yourself, I think can really help. And I think it also provides that moment of perspective that everything might seem like such a big deal right now, but if we just put life into perspective and take a few moments to do some deep breathing and have a moment of Zen, I think it's really, really useful. So not only am I talking about herbs and supplements for this patient, but I would also talk about, the idea of mindfulness. And there's also some other really great food options that are amazing for this as well. And we'll get into that in the following slides. So we have case study 3. So we have a male, age 51. He's starting to feel the aches and pains of aging, as he said. He has a family history of arthritis. These are some of the medications he's taking, and these are important. I specifically picked some of these medications to put into context what I would say if someone came to me with these medications, specifically atorvastatin 10 milligrams, and how I would go about recommendations, and especially in terms of CBD and cannabis. And then also I put some of his supplements on the screen too. So these are some of the supplements I would recommend for movement. And that's something that he came, saying that he's starting to feel these aches and pains, but he loves working out. He's previous marathoner and loves to incorporate movement as much as he can. So these are a lot of the supplements I would recommend for movement, but also for recovery as well. I think a lot of these different components would be really great to incorporate into your routine. And then I also think too, a lot of this, aches and pains, but also going back to even the previous patient talking about mood balance, there's a really great correlation looking at studies that have delved into omega-3 fatty acids. So you might have heard that. I put salmon on the screen because most people associate omega-3 with one of the best, ways to, ingest it is through salmon. But there's also a lot of other great ways too, whether it's flaxseed, chia seed, and some of those seeds that we can incorporate into our daily life. But also, it's very interesting to think about too, that where do even these fish, for example, get omega-3? And they get omega-3 from seaweed and from a lot of other plants. So if you see things like spirulina, chlorella, nori, different types of seaweed. That's actually a really great way to get omega-3 too. That's not talked about often enough, in my opinion. And I wanted to put, this looks super complicated on the right side of the screen, but I wanted to put the pathway that omega-3s are a part of. And it's really interesting to me, of course, as an integrative health pharmacist, but also someone who just like loves biochemistry, that, you see anandamide in the middle. And I don't know if you remember in the beginning, I was talking about anandamide. So actually in the omega-3, metabolism pathway, if you look at this pathway in particular, one of the byproducts of the entire reaction is anandamide. And so anandamide is really important in promoting mood. And a lot of, what I'll talk about in a bit with an increase in anandamide is kind of the equivalent of how people think of, ingesting THC. And so if you ingest a lot of THC for a lot of people, it can actually give them, feelings of feeling high or euphoria or any of that. And it's the same idea with anandamide. When you have a certain amount of when you create, because again, anandamide you make internally, it's an endocannabinoid. So when you eat omega-3 fatty acids, whether it's in, salmon, whether it's in spirulina, whether it's in flaxseed, far along down the pipeline or during the biosynthesis, actually it creates anandamide. So that means that you're increasing the amount of anandamide. Therefore, anandamide works with the endocannabinoid system. And so you're able to help the functionality of your system just by incorporating certain foods. And so again, as I mentioned before, it's cannabinoids, but it's also some of these other things we can do on the daily that we might already be doing, honestly. Some of you might have literally had fish or one of the items that I mentioned earlier today that can really help your endocannabinoid system in the way that it works. And something else to keep in mind that I'm not sure I mentioned yet is that with the endocannabinoid system, we want the overarching goal of it is to promote balance. I did say that. However, when the endocannabinoid system is out of balance, it's something that generally manifests itself in, low immunity. It's in a lot of, different potential disease states, especially chronic disease states. And, this off balance, so to speak, is actually now, and this pathway is the inflammatory pathway. That's why it reminded me is, a lot of the out of balance can manifest itself in high inflammation. And inflammation gets a very bad rep. I'll be the first one to say for years, I used to describe cannabinoids and stuff as anti-inflammatory. And, we need a little bit of inflammation because if you think about being exposed to a pathogen or a virus or anything in life, we want our body to have a little bit of acute inflammation. So a little bit of inflammation and a little bit of immediate or sudden inflammation, because that can really help us fight off whatever, is a pathogen that we don't want in our body or something toxic. Whereas, the issue with inflammation is when it becomes chronic inflammation or when it becomes an unwanted or an excess amount of inflammation. And that's why, if we can keep the endocannabinoid system in balance, a lot of our other systems in balance by by association. And then we can incorporate different foods like this and cannabinoids into our daily life. Then we can optimize and increase things like anandamide, which make us happy. I mean, anandamide, the word origin comes back to ananda, which is actually from Sanskrit, which just means bliss. So an increase of anandamide in your system really is associated with bliss or feeling happy or, feeling high or feeling euphoria. And more info to come on that as well. Okay, and so this is one of the other things that we might already be doing on the daily, but it actually plays a role. And there's research showing that the catechins, so one of the active ingredients in matcha, EGCG, it's considered a catechin, is the category of the catechin. It's the category of the active component of matcha. And you might have heard of EGCG because I feel like recently I've seen a lot more social media content from matcha brands and stuff talking about EGCG, which I love because we need to not only educate people on, how amazing, these different things can be, but why it makes a difference and why incorporating EGCG makes a difference. So, I mean, we know a lot of the benefits of matcha with, and providing caffeine and also the amount of chlorophyll in it, providing things like L-theanine, which you might have seen on quite a few slides recently, because I think it's an incredible supplement for so many different reasons. Happy to delve into that as well. But also it has EGCG. So EGCG was actually shown in this study that I have on the screen that it had a moderate affinity for the type 1 cannabinoid receptor. So again, thinking about the CB1 receptor, it's more closely associated with the central nervous system function, as you can see in this little, body on the right side of the screen. It's that green, those are the CB1 receptors. So it's more closely associated with the central nervous system function, the CB1 receptor. And so that is the receptor system, the CB1 receptor that has that affinity with euphoria, with anandamide, with THC. And so ingesting EGCG on the regular for these patients in the study, it actually showed that it increased the anandamide in the body because it had an affinity for this type 1 receptor, the CB1 receptor. So it's really interesting to see all these links and how much research there is and how much research is actually ongoing to draw a lot of these connections between the endocannabinoid system and a lot of other things we do in our daily life. All right, so exercise is another one of my favorite examples. So this is one of the many studies that talks about, when we exercise, we have what's called, like a runner's high. People describe it after as like feeling amazing after they worked out. They always say it's like, it's hard to get to the gym, but once you leave the gym, you just feel amazing. And a lot of that has to do with the release of anandamide. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about because it's actually stems from what's called the endorphin hypothesis. And that was like in the 80s, there was a bunch of researchers looking at, why do people feel so good after they work out? And a lot of them came up with this idea of like looking at the biochemical pathway and seeing that at the end is the release of endorphins. But what they failed to really look at, and what you can look at the pathway if you Google it, is in the way beginning of the pathway, towards the beginning of the pathway, is actually an increase in anandamide that's released, which is why, intriguingly, it's called the runner's high, because anandamide is binding to the CB1 receptors. So it explains why you feel incredible and you feel this like sense of euphoria and you feel like the runner's high, because anandamide is increased and therefore you feel this way. And that's why people look forward to working out and stuff so much, because they feel so incredible afterwards. And so it's, initially was thought of as the endorphin hypothesis, but I would love to rename it the endocannabinoid or the, anandamide hypothesis, because at the end of the day, it's more closely correlated with that anandamide release at the beginning. Not to say the endorphins are not involved, they are involved, just like very much, farther down the pathway. So another really cool thing that you might already be doing in your daily life or a few times a week, that you're already optimizing your endocannabinoid system in a way that you probably didn't even think about, and that's through exercise. All right, so we have another case study here. We have patient OW. She's a female. She's 37. She comes to me and she's really interested in optimizing her wellness. So everything from gut health and immunity, especially this time of year. And she's really interested in a clean lifestyle and wants to switch a lot of her home and skincare products to something that's toxic free. And so she just was asking me for different recommendations. And so one of the things I thought of was curcumin. So curcumin is the active component in turmeric. And this is really important because there's also research showing that turmeric, or curcumin in particular, so again, thinking about turmeric as a very complicated plant, and curcumin is one of the active ingredients in the plant, it's been researched and it shows that, one of the active components is actually a terpene that works on the CB2 receptor. And so a terpene, as I mentioned before, is one of the active one of the active components in the cannabis plant. So this is important because now we see that these other bioflavonoids, these other active components, these other active terpenes that are found in other nutrient sources, or found in other parts of our diet, can actually also benefit the endocannabinoid system. And then next we have echinacea. And I know echinacea is like really common this time of year, especially in like cold and flu season and everything, because echinacea has been researched for many, many years. I want to say centuries, maybe not centuries, but for a lot of years, looking at how echinacea can be used in the prevention of cold and flu. And so it doesn't treat it, but in the prevention of it. And so echinacea has been shown in many studies that it actually has an affinity to the CB2 receptor. Something that I did not mention, I don't think, as of yet, is, the CB1 receptor is primarily focused on the central nervous system, but it is found throughout the body. I did mention that. However, the CB2 receptor is actually more closely associated with immune function. So this is important when I said, previously with turmeric or curcumin in particular, there is an affinity to the CB2 receptor. So again, playing a role in immunity. Another one of my favorite examples of that is the active components in black pepper, also playing an active role with the CB2 receptor. And so this is incredible to me, because it's something that, I've thought of for years of like, yes, you incorporate all these different things into our daily life, and echinacea has alkylamides that have been researched for a lot of reasons. But to think that now echinacea can be put in the context of the endocannabinoid system, to me is just fascinating as a researcher, but also as a clinician. All right, and then also prebiotics, probiotics, and the endocannabinoid system. So this is also other research that has been done by one of the top researchers in the field, Dr. Ethan Russo, and he showed that probiotics and prebiotics actually could be really interesting future therapeutic targets in the endocannabinoid system schema because of the correlation with because of the correlation of incorporating prebiotics and probiotics into your daily life, and how that actually helps optimize the system. That's really cool. It's really fascinating. And especially in the context of gut health, which is really important right now. And everyone is trying to have the best gut health possible, particularly in my case, case 4, patient OW, she was really interested in that as well. So it's really important. So that's some of the case studies. I thought that was a really interesting way to talk about how I see cannabinoids in the context of a lot of these different patients, but also how I see a lot of other healing and health modalities that can play a role, and the context too of how so many of these things that we might already do in our daily life really do optimize the way that our endocannabinoid system works, which is, one of my goals as a clinician to help you do that. So another few things that I wanted to talk about was CBD and wellness. So something you might be wondering, and a question that I literally get all the time is, what types of testing are done with cannabinoids, and really what does that mean in the context of, buying a product, trusting a brand? And so I really wanted to talk about the certificate of analysis. Certificate of analysis is, I have an example on the right side of the screen. They are public documents that are involved with the testing. So the third-party testing that every CBD brand should be doing. So every CBD brand should be looking at, what are the actual, active components, but also the inactive components, and also the other components that we might not want in our cannabinoids. So for example, like you'll see on the screen, this is just an example of one of the tests we've done recently in the past few years. And so you can see like it tests for heavy metals, foreign matter, microbials, pesticides. And of course, as a brand, you want to see that the products you're creating don't have any of these things. So that's really important. And so as you can see, like it says approved because we don't have, heavy metals, foreign matter, all the things that you don't want in a product. But it's really important that not only do brands have this information readily available, so it should be just something you can easily find on the website, but if you can't find it on the website, totally fine. What my suggestion is always before you buy from a brand is to reach out to them via their, their messaging center. They might have like a contact us, and then that's where you can send them a message and just be like, hey, would love to review your certificate of analysis for your recent batch of, enter product here. And then they should be able to send that to you via email. If any brand comes back to you and says, oh, actually, we can't disclose that information, or, like that information isn't, public domain, that's completely false, and please do not buy from them, because it's really important that not only do brands do this, certificate of analysis, testing and documentation, they also can have it readily available for potential customers. So that's something very important to keep in mind when you're thinking about buying from a brand. The other thing too is the importance of clinical studies. As I mentioned, everything I talked about today is all different studies that I found to help corroborate this idea that, the endocannabinoid system is really interwoven with a lot of different things, but also like that's the way that I think as a clinician. And I think it's really important that we talk about clinical studies in the context of the endocannabinoid system and also look at clinical studies for efficacy. Because when we're looking at our own products, like our own as an almanopathic products, when we're looking at the future development of products, it's really important to think about what studies have been done and what studies can be done to really validate the ingredients that we're selecting. All right, and then the other thing I wanted to talk about too that kind of go hand in hand are pharmacogenomics and drug-herb interactions. So this is going back to that pie chart that I was talking about a few slides ago, or like towards the earlier part of the conversation, where I was talking about that a lot of different drugs, a lot of different herbs, cannabinoids included, are all broken down by a very similar enzyme system, this CYP or CYP system. And because they're broken down by these enzymes, it's possible that there could be drug interactions. So again, this comes down to the idea of personalized medicine. And anytime I talk to a patient or a customer, just ensuring that I have their full drug list, their full supplement list, and, asking those probing questions to figure out, is there, any potential interaction? And that's something that I know on my end to be like, once I have the list of the potential products they're interested in incorporating, whether they're cannabinoid products or otherwise, then I can figure out like, is this the right choice? And maybe is there a way we can optimize the therapy? And then pharmacogenomics is another really important, almost add-on. It's a way to, again, further personalize medicine. And we can look at, these different CYP enzymes, for example, and see if we have any, what are called, the fancy term is polymorphism, but if we have any like different gene variants or anything, then we can see, oh, if they have a gene variant in XYZ enzyme, then it means that they might not be able to break down CBD well, therefore we need to up their dose, or maybe therefore we need to decrease their dose. Again, would love to talk more about that. But, that's just like an intro to the way that I view as a pharmacist, as an integrative health pharmacist, all the different aspects that I take into account. And as I mentioned before, it's all about the benefit versus risk ratio. And I love this little graphic on the right side where it's like looking at, does the benefit outweigh the risk? In this particular scenario, the risk outweighs the benefit. And so to me, it's not worth incorporating, whatever product it is into that person's life because the risk outweighs the benefit. So we're always looking to, tip the scale in the other direction and have the benefit outweigh the risk in every single patient scenario. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what we do at Element Apothic. So we're very interested, as I mentioned, in having clinical validation, having the right people on our team to really build the right products. And so this is just a look into our medical advisory board. We're really proud to have our team here. And I also run internship programs for Doctor of Pharmacy, nutritionists, and Doctor of Medicine students, any graduate level STEM candidate who's interested in learning more about what it means to be on the natural product side, to be in the entrepreneurship side, to do something a little bit more unconventional. So I do have internships that are running for scientific communications and in the R&D space, and all of our interns work very closely with me as well as our medical advisory team. And I couldn't not talk about our new course that I'm so excited about. And our at Element Apothic, we're really excited about having products that not only have the efficacy, have the safety, and that are backed by this medical oversight that I just demonstrated, but also like to have the education to go along with it, which is why I love to do webinars like this, because I get to talk about, different integrative health modalities and how cannabis fits into the entire world that I live in, I suppose. And so I wanted to touch on some of the other education that we offer. We offer blog content. So our scientific communications and R&D interns are responsible for creating a lot of our evidence-based blog content. We recently started a podcast in collaboration with the Pharmacy Podcast Network, and I'm really excited about that. And we'll be talking about, again, the evidence-based scientific side of why we use certain wellness modalities. Like I have an episode coming out soon about like the science behind mindfulness. And then we'll also have some different episodes about the science of botanical medicine, cannabis included. We also have one-on-one consultations where you're able to just submit for a complimentary consultation with myself or with one of the medical staff that you saw on the other screen. So depending on, what specialty you're interested in, you'll get to talk to one of us. We also have the Ask Dr. Swathi web interface. So there you're able to just send a message and it actually comes straight to my email. So then I can respond to you and answer any questions you might have in that way. So if that's easier for you than doing the complimentary consultation, then that's awesome as well. And then what we are launching today, which I'm so proud of, is our online certification course. So we have an online multi-module. It's the first course of its kind, specifically created for consumers. This has been like 18 months in the making, no joke, where we put so much time, effort, and energy, me, the medical team, our interns, everyone together to make it this team effort and to put all of our expertise together. And a lot of the reason why I wanted to create this course, even in the first place, was to answer a lot of the questions that people have been asking me. I've been getting so many questions over the years of being a, cannabis specialist, botanical medicine specialist about, what they need to know about cannabinoids. And so this is a course that we've created based on that. And I have a discount code on the screen. So if you use the code CBD99, then you get the course for $99. And that offer will be extended till the end of the week. So today's Tuesday, so it'll be till the end of the week. So please take advantage of that. And I would love to now open it for any questions that you might have. Oh, and I did want to mention before I answer any questions that we do have a post-webinar survey. If it works for you to click on the screen, please do that, but we'll also be sending it out in our follow-up email so that you'll have access to it. But it'd be really helpful for us to figure out, what you took away from this webinar and what you want to learn about in future webinars. All righty, I will stop sharing my screen. Stop share. Okay, cool. I'll stop sharing. And yeah, now I'm open and excited to answer any of your questions. We do have a few minutes at the end. And I can also put my email in the chat if anyone is interested in connecting more, asking, a more specific question to you, then we can also connect by email. Great. Let me open the Q&A. Okay. How do you know what dose to take for tinctures? Oh my gosh, great question. So the big thing with tinctures, and one of the reasons that I love tinctures so much, and it's like one of my favorite go-to modality choices for people who are trying cannabinoids for the first time, is because we always use a graduated cylinder in all of our products. And so, and a lot of tinctures use them as well. And so what graduated means is that it starts, with 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, and 1 mil, and it's very clearly labeled on the pipette. And so what I always say, it really depends on the person. It depends on if they've tried cannabis before, if they have tried CBD before. If you've tried it 1 or 2 times in your life or something, it's a different scenario than if someone says they use CBD gummies and they use other CBD and THC products for, like they use it every single day or multiple times a week, then I would have a different answer. So if someone is, kind of what's called cannabinoid naive, or they're not used to taking cannabinoids, what I would suggest is that people start with 0.25 milliliters. See, that might seem like a very little amount, but for some people, that's all they need. And that's like the big thing about dosing in cannabinoids that I did not talk about today because it's so complex, but that when it comes to dosing, it's like each person is so individual, and it does not come down to age, race, height, gender, adiposity, like anything. And so we really need to think about how we can, incorporate these cannabinoids. But, I always am a big proponent would start low, go slow, and stay low. The lowest dose you can take, the best, in my opinion. So I would always say start with 0.25 mils if you have never taken cannabinoids before. Try that for a few days, see how you feel. It depends on what you're using it for. If it's like our rest, relax, recover you're taking at night, try it for a few nights, see if you feel anything. If you're like, this is not doing anything for me, then you can go up to 0.5 mils. Then after a few days, if that's still not doing it, you can go up to the 0.75. It really depends the person. I know plenty of people that take 0.25 and feel awesome. And then I also know people who take, the full mil and also feel awesome. So it just depends on the person. And then you might see as well that there are different dosages. So for example, Element Apothic, we have a 500 milligram. tincture for some of our options, as well as a 1500. So again, if you have no familiarity with CBD, as in you've never taken it before, you've tried it 1 or 2 times in your whole life, I would veer on the side of a low dose again. So starting with the 500, starting with that quarter dropper, and you can always increase from there. You could also go with the higher dose if you'd prefer that. Just of course start with the lower and just go even slower than you would with the 500 milligrams. But that would be my suggestion. I hope that's helpful. And if you'd like any more clarification, you can definitely ask. Okay, awesome. So next we have another question. I heard that if someone is taking a medication that doesn't work with grapefruit, that they shouldn't use CBD and THC. Okay, that's an awesome question too. So this is one of the things I was talking about with it's not just drug-drug interactions. It's not just drug-herb interactions. There's even an added layer of like drug-nutrient or drug, food interactions. And so this is one of them. So the reason that people say this is because of, grapefruit is thought of as what's called a CYP inducer. So this is like the enzyme family I was talking about. It induces the way that it works. Anyways, I don't need to get that complicated. But so the thing with grapefruit is that the studies have shown that you actually need to ingest a lot of grapefruit, and you need to ingest it almost daily for your body to say, oh my gosh, like cannabinoids are not the right choice. So the thing is with the way that grapefruit works and the way that cannabinoids work together is that if you're a big proponent of grapefruit, you love grapefruit, you have it every single day, it's that core part of your breakfast that you look forward to, then I would say that perhaps cannabinoids are not the right choice for you, just because if you take cannabinoids with grapefruit and you're having grapefruit like 6 to 7 days a week, and you're having half a grapefruit or a whole grapefruit, and over time, that's quite a lot of grapefruit, then what will happen is that the cannabinoids won't work. And so I would say don't spend money on cannabinoids if the grapefruit is going to make it so it doesn't work. But if you have grapefruit here and there and like a grapefruit sorbet in the summer, like 1 or 2 times, or you have grapefruit here and there to change it up, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But the main interaction is that grapefruit makes it so that cannabinoids don't work. So it's just something to keep in mind. And again, it's going to be very patient dependent on how frequently they're ingesting grapefruit. And again, how often they're ingesting. So how frequently, but also, how frequently they also are planning to ingest cannabinoids. Because if you take, if you have grapefruit every single day and you just want to try CBD once, it might have some sort of effect, but it's again, that long-term use of cannabinoids with the long-term use of grapefruit, that's where you really have the issue. All right, awesome. So we have that. Let's see. Would love to answer any other questions. Oh my gosh, we're just at time. Wow, look at us. That's awesome. So I am going to stay for like 1 more minute if there's any other question that comes through, but we're recording right now. So if you signed up to receive the recording link, you will be receiving that shortly after. It needs a second to like load and everything, so you might not send it till tomorrow or later this week, but you will be receiving the recording if you requested that through the ticket that you selected. So you might be receiving the recording, but please let me know if there's anything else, like anything I can answer for you. And, I'm always here as a resource. You can find me through the Ask Dr. Swathi platform on our website, or you can schedule a complimentary one-on-one with me or someone on our medical team. And I'm happy to answer more specific questions, but this has been great. Thank you so much for the questions after and for staying engaged the whole time, and for listening to me go off on how much I love cannabinoids. So alrighty. So I think that we will call it a close, but yeah, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in, and we hope that you come to our next one, and please fill out our post-webinar survey. That's super helpful for us to just know, what you liked about this one and what other topics that you'd like to learn about within the scope of wellness. So, all right, well, have a good night, everyone. I'm going to stop recording.